Geocache-maniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Welcome back to the GeoGearHeads episode 361. This is going to be our 77th Randomize show, and my co-host Chris of the Northwest is really big on these Randomize shows.
I love these Randomize shows. However, I count 76.
You are correct, but I am having vision issues tonight.
It's LXXVI.
VIs. Oh, I was so excited because I was thinking it was 77 when I just glanced at the number.
Well, if you're new to GeoGearHeads, these Randomize shows are little tidbits of information, maybe not enough to talk about for an entire episode, but we toss them in and we usually get some good satellite news. But you know what? We're not alone for this. We've got an extra special host with us tonight. Scott, thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me, boys. It's always good to be back on the show.
Well, we need people to help us from falling apart because, you know, we do that anyway.
Well, you know,
yes, we do.
Tough getting old, Daryl.
It is.
First thing that goes is the eyes, man. It's the first thing that goes.
You know, I love having the Roman numerals because it looks like we are doing so much more than we actually are. And it gives you that little practice for the puzzles. Yeah. But it now I can understand a little bit better why Head Hard Hat had so much trouble with those.
Yeah,
too many repeating letters.
Yeah. Once you get into the 70s, it's just getting obnoxious. You might as well just go back to the digits.
Hey, once we hit a million, or no, sorry, 1,000, it gets a lot easier again.
Mm-hmm.
What is 100? Isn't that like, is that 3 X's? What is it?
C.
C.
Oh, totally. It's C.
It's very Spanish.
The C actually isn't too bad. I just like the M's.
You want the M?
Yeah, whenever I see like on the year in Roman numerals for a copyright or something, you know, printing and that, and I'm like, okay, hold on, I have to work this out.
Right. Well, it's funny, you know, the 1990s and 80s. I mean, it was like 15 characters long, and now it's like 4, isn't it, or 5?
Exactly. Yeah. I think we're still in the 4s. Yeah. But I loved it. 2000, it was just MM, and you're going
MM. But what was like 1999? What was that?
Oh, I don't even remember. Painful. It was insane. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was like 97 is when I started really detecting that it was unmanageable at that point.
Yeah. You see people walking around with a tattoo of like the year on their arm, and it's like 15 characters long.
It goes from their pinky to their elbow.
It's always M's and C's and L's, dude. What is that?
I like to buy a vowel. And see, the Romans didn't plan far enough ahead for these things. So, you know, that's one reason they're not around anymore.
Yeah.
Just took too long to put the date on all these papers.
You know what? Forget it. Just forget it.
That's it. We're over.
You're sure it wasn't the fact that they were using stamps that were made of stone and they just squashed themselves dating all their checks and everything?
Right.
As the years kept getting larger, the stamps kept getting bigger and heavier.
Right.
It was survival of the fittest. Only the warriors then could stamp the pages, and they were too busy fighting.
The term to stamp it out.
Oh, Daryl, look, Darylopedia.
Let's actually get into our first article, though, which comes from the geocaching blog about the new souvenir for this month. Well, for next month, technically, I guess. But the December 3rd through 31st is going to be the You Might Be a Trackable Lover If souvenir. And we have to earn 80 points this time.
Seems like a lot of points.
It does, but I'm not going to have much of a problem with it. I know, Chris, you're not going to have a problem with it. Scott, you might have a little bit more trouble with it, but I figure you cache so much that it's not going to be an issue.
Daryl, jewel caching day, isn't this?
Exactly.
There you go.
Come on, dude.
But,
kids, it's time again. It's jewel caching time.
So all you have to do is find 12 geocaches on geocaching day, and you got it made.
Yeah.
12 days, 12 caches on geocaching day is a bad geocaching day. That's what that is. You only find 12.
Oh, that's too many.
No. You have to do more than the 12. You'd have to do 14.
Well, 10 would get you to 70, and then 2 more would get you 14.
Well, that's only if the caches have 10 favorite points.
You're right.
So the scoring goes: regular found it log is worth 5 points this time. If it has 10 or more favorite points, it's worth 7, and attending an event is only worth 5.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the event for geocaching day, so there's 1. Right. Then you've got the 100 and something caches, so there's 500, so you're done anyway. But the big thing is this time it's about the trackables. So activating a trackable is worth 10 points. So Chris, you've got probably the 202 that came in the VIP kit from Geo Woodstock to activate. So You're going to be over 2,000 this time.
How many came in the VIP kit?
I don't remember. It was something like 24.
It seemed like about 10 million, enough to set off metal detectors at the airport.
What did you order? One of everything?
Well, the VIP pack is pretty much one of everything, with a couple of limited edition versions of some of the regulars, and I think they had 2 coins that were just for the VIPs.
What, you look at the menu and go, yeah, I'll take it all. I want it all.
No, there's no menu. It's just, do you want the VIP pack? And we said, yes, we want the VIP pack.
Must be nice to have money. Must be nice.
It was definitely
it was more for the parking, because as vendors that helped as well.
But the parking didn't matter. Wasn't the parking horrible anyway? Wasn't the if I remember correctly,
the parking really wasn't that bad this time, and they kind of messed up, I think, and didn't get the VIPs in the right sections. But yeah, we were planning on needing that to get in and out, because you only get the 1 vendor pass. Yeah. Plus you get the lunch provided under the VIP.
Did you get the lunch?
We got the lunch.
How was the lunch?
The lunch wasn't very good. It wasn't great, or it wasn't bad. It
wasn't bad.
Yeah,
it wasn't good, but
it was more about getting away from the booth and having a place to sit and chat with some of the people that we generally don't get to see so often.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that was worthwhile. The other part of this, though, is dropping off a trackable that you do not own is worth 5. And this is a change, because it used to be that you could drop your own trackable and get points. But they've made a change, and they made sure to note it, that the current scoring is only for trackables you do not own, and only when you drop. Ooh. So they fixed that little loophole where you could drop your trackables into a cache, pick them back up, and get all those points.
My favorite loophole. Yes.
Yeah. A lot of people use that.
Cheat to win, man. Cheat to win.
It's not cheating if they give you that option.
Right. It's gaming the system at most.
Well, I look at it as an option for cachers who don't have a lot of caches in their area, but still want to get a souvenir. So let's say you're out in the middle of Montana and there are only 3 caches within 25 miles of you. Mm-hmm. So going out and saying, I've got to go find.
Why are you still playing the game? Well, that was fun afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, I spaced it out. It took me 4 days. Took a day off in between to rest.
I have cleared the counties and the state and the DeLorean pages.
Done. I don't know.
Well, this does tend to be a busier time of year for most people, so they're probably looking for something that they think is not going to require people to go out as much and still get it. But they did bump up the score this time to 80 points.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to take a little bit more work.
So I still need to find 1 more cache to finish this month's.
Really? You haven't done this month?
Ooh.
No. I'm 5 points away.
You only have through this weekend to do that.
I know. And it wasn't going to be a problem until suddenly I don't feel well.
Well, how many caches was this one?
Well, this one you had to get 70 points. So again, I think it was 10 points for the favorited caches. Does that sound right?
Right.
And then 5 for the regular found. Yeah. And I think it's 10 points it's 15, I think, for the events. Uh-huh. So if you attended an event, you get the 15, and I did like 4 events this time and a couple of caches, I think it was. So I'm like right there, like I've gotten it, but I haven't had the time to go caching.
Mm.
So I don't have that comfortable buffer that I'd like.
Fair enough. So you don't have it yet?
No, I do have it.
Oh, okay.
Chris is one short, and you got it like, what, 50, 60 times over?
Oh, yeah.
You're not quite that bad, but
But I mean,
you did quite a bit just this last weekend.
yeah, I did 69 caches just over the weekend. Yeah, so yeah,
Slacker.
right?
You just said, oh shoot, Lee, whatever his caching name was, on the show last night.
Oh, 69. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was on the geocaching podcast last night.
Yeah, he really makes us feel like slackers.
I'm sorry, Scott. Say that again. What podcast?
The geocaching podcast.
Wait, wasn't that a long time ago and now suddenly it's returned?
No.
A long time ago in a podcast far, far away.
But I lost my train of thought because Chris interrupted me.
I was trying to get you to promote your show.
Geocaching podcast. I'm promoting it. What are you talking about?
Okay.
What do you want me to promote it?
I don't know.
Do it. Call it in. Come on. Call in. Say hello.
I'm trying to help you here, Scott. Work with me.
I'm sorry. Thank you. So yeah, talking about feeling. I mean, the guy goes out. I mean, first of all, he's got at least 8 years on all of us, and he goes out, and he finds hundreds, 300-400 in a weekend.
Wow. So he started that early on. I missed that part of the show, I think.
What do you mean he started that early on?
Because you said he had like 8 years on us, so he was like.
I mean, age wise.
Oh, got it.
I mean, like that's what I'm saying. You say like he makes me feel lazy. Yeah, I mean, not only that, but he's like got 8 years on me, and he still makes me feel lazy. He's like, I think he's 4 years away from retirement.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he's like, wait till you see my numbers when I retire. Like,
oh yeah.
I can only imagine.
Well, although you run into some of those people and they decide after a couple of months, maybe a year, I want to totally change the way I'm caching, and all of a sudden, no more power runs. Now they're going to go for those like really difficult ones.
I mean, he's been doing power years. He's been this is the way.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't want to get on a whole Sal's tangent here, but that's just the way he caches. He's
Sure.
He's a numbers guy. He's and God bless. Hey, this game's for everybody. Everything's got its own place in this game, and for him, it's challenging himself to see how many he can get in a weekend. That's what he wants. That's for him. He likes to get 100 by noon. That's kind of his goal. It's crazy. Yeah, I mean, shake your head, Chris. It's crazy. I know.
Yeah.
I can only dream of the time to try that kind of stuff.
Do it. Me and Jesse, about a month ago, we went to Indiana, the backroads of Indiana, and we did like 345 in a weekend.
Whew.
Like after about a day, we're like, we were bored, just flat out bored.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can only do that so many. I know one day I'm gonna have to do the ET Highway, and I want to do it, and I look forward to doing it. But I know I'm gonna be miserable the entire time I'm doing it.
And yet you want to.
But I'll do it. I absolutely got to do it. One of those things. It's one of those things. It's like you got to do it.
Yeah.
Well, I figure about the first hour is going to be kind of fun.
Right. And then
it's going to be drudgery until like the last 20, 30 caches when you're like, just a couple more. You're singing the 99 bottles of beer to get through. I'm going
to get up the next day. If we start on Friday, I'm going to get up Saturday morning just dreading the day.
I gotta do this again.
But I know I got to do it, and I look forward to doing it because I know as much as I'll hate it, it's an adventure. It's one of those things you do.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah, definitely. And it's probably a lot better if you have the bus.
Yeah.
Bus full of Germans.
But you got to get you get the van now with the door open and you get a couple buddies.
Sure, yeah.
So you take turns and stuff like that. But I mean, Lee did it twice because he did it. Remember, Lee did the first one, and then remember they archived it all.
Yeah,
put it out again. So he did it again.
Yeah, and for anyone who doesn't remember, or maybe even wasn't caching when that happened, the Nevada Department of Transportation, I think that's the right name, but the guys in charge of the highway, forced geocaching.com to archive the entire series because they were having trouble with people too close to the road. They weren't pulling over on the shoulder far enough and that kind of thing.
Now it's 50 feet.
Right.
On it. Now it's 50 feet away. It's 50 feet off the road. Back then it was literally right on the road. So
it was right on the shoulder.
Right. Yes. So people weren't getting off the road. And
right.
So I think it was like 2011. Was that 2010, 2011? When was that?
I think it was closer to 2010 than 2011.
Was it 20?
But it might even have been a little bit earlier.
I know.
I
No,
just
no,
can't
no,
really
no. 'Cause
remember.
Me and Walt were. Me and Walt were had the podcast. So it's
Okay.
2010, if not later. That's when we started. So
And the worst part is we actually did that interview with them on Geocaching Podcast, and it was one of the ones that got lost when Head Hard Hat had that server crash.
Crash, the big the person of the ET Highway guy.
Yeah, the pair of them that did that.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And they talked about putting it out, how that all happened, and the fact that Little Alien really came to the defense and was giving the Nevada highway guys a hard time when they'd come in, because it's like the only thing there.
Right.
And they didn't have to shut down because of the ET highway. It was
that tiny little hotel, I'm sure, was dying.
Yeah, well, they usually shut down for the winter season.
Right.
But because of the ET highway, they were able to stay open all year.
Yeah.
And, the only guys that come by are like the highway crews and some truckers.
Right. Yeah.
That's it.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So they actually were able to stay open and keep the whole thing going all winter long. And so when the Nevada highway guys came by, they gave them a hard time. Bring back the ET highway geocaches. We have to have these back.
It's amazing.
And they ended up working with the team that put out the caches and came up with a strategy that the highway patrol, or not patrol, but the highway guys actually liked enough that they allowed it to come back. And
yeah,
the pressure of commerce, I guess.
I just remember the picture. I remember looking at the picture of the guy had a pickup truck and he had all of the caches in the back of his pickup truck. He was picking. Do you remember that picture, Daryl? That it was.
I do.
It's probably 1,000 caches in the back of that pickup truck. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's so depressing. That's so depressing.
Did they have a picture of him in the pickup truck putting them back out?
I'd be like, I am not putting those back out, man. I'd be so pissed. I'm like, I ain't doing it. Nope. Somebody else could do it.
Well, I think it's probably the pressure from the caching community that had them put it back out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's such a destination. I mean, I remember reading about, I think, was it FTF magazine? Was that around back then? I can't remember. Somewhere I read where
No, I don't think that was FTF. There was another one pre-FTF that I actually had, but I can't remember the name.
An article about how people from out of the country had airplane tickets and stuff to come to Nevada to come do this, and it was gone.
Right.
Suddenly it was gone. Yeah.
Well, and the Little Alien had been booked up with a couple of rooms at least, through the whole winter, and then all of those bookings canceled suddenly.
Oh, I believe it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because you figure, I mean, what I hear, everybody says if you're going to do it, you got to do it now. You got to do it in November. November, December is when you want to do
Sure.
it. It's cool that it's not super, super hot. So I'm sure going through the winter, yeah, I'm sure they probably get business all year when people go,
Well, GSM times 2 in the chat says the fun of the ET highway is hanging out with friends.
Sure.
He's also done it twice.
Oh, another one. There you go.
Did it the first time in December of 2010, and then again in November of 2011. He did 1,000 the first time, 1,500 the second time.
Oh man, that's nice. I can't even fathom getting 1,000 in a day or 1,000 in a weekend. That's so out of my realm.
Well, and that's why you want to do these things, is so that you can max out those find counts, because it's just it's kind of like running the marathon. If you're a runner, this is kind of the equivalent of that.
What's funny is that Jesse and I, we took over last weekend. We took this trip down to Southern Illinois to finish off the Delorme and the counties challenge. Is what we did. We finished. We completed them.
Congratulations!
And thank you. And can you believe neither of those are a 5.5? Can you believe that? You were ticked off. Neither of them are 5.5. Anyway, so we both realized, and we rented a car because we both didn't want to put any more miles on. Both of our cars were over 100,000 miles. And Daryl, when I bought my car, you were there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that thing's got over 100,000 miles already.
Uh-huh.
That's how much mileage I put on my car. And
I'm not surprised for a geocacher, though.
I know. And so we rented a car, and what happened was the guy's like, you can either, they upgraded us because they didn't have any cars because it was Thanksgiving weekend. He's like, you can have this VW or you can have this brand new Jeep Wrangler. We're like, we'll take the Jeep Wrangler, thank you so much. So we drove all around. The thing is about a Jeep Wrangler, I don't know if any of you guys ever have one or drove one or whatnot, is that it's really high up.
Mm-hmm.
Coordinates are short people, so we had to literally jump up and get down and jump up every time we got out there. Jump up.
You got your aerobics in.
We are so sore, and we wake up Sunday morning. We're like, why the hell are we sore? She's like, my legs are sore. I'm like, my legs are killing me. We're fucking Jeep, like jumping up and down in the Jeep.
Should have went for the Volkswagen.
I know. Oh, it was so much fun though. It was a fun. I mean, it was loaded. It was great. It was just,
And I'm sure you took the top off and had the doors off and everything.
it was November in Illinois.
Yeah,
but come on, you're from Chicago. That's nothing.
No, I wanted to. I mean, it got up to like 63 at one day, and we thought about it. But then, like, I looked into it, and like, there's like all these like things. It had tools in the glove box, and I'm like, it's tools. I can't. I'm too
Tools.
I want clip down. I don't
Push a button, down it goes.
exactly. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to the next piece of feedback because we're already at 20 minutes and we've done one of our articles. M Suite NW on the website did a follow-up to 359 and said, thanks for the great show. When phone caching, I have been a dedicated CGO user for the last 3 years. There are some limitations, but it is much more user-friendly than the official app. During the show, you mentioned that app violates the geocaching terms of service because it scrapes data from the website, and you wouldn't recommend it. That was a surprise to me, and I have downloaded Geo Live, and so far I'm impressed. Thanks for the tip.
Nice. Now, I don't think CGO does that scraping anymore. I think they did at one time.
No, they don't have an API key, so they have to be scraping.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because it breaks every time they update.
Right.
Yes.
But that's also why CGO was able to do stuff that the API apps were not able to do because it's just scraping the data. It wasn't constrained by the API. However, because it doesn't use the API, there's other stuff that they had a harder time getting to.
Yeah, Nick has his hands like shackled,
Right.
much where I'm sorry, Nick of Cashley. Sorry.
Right.
Because he has to follow the guidelines, whereas CGO can do whatever the hell they want.
And the unofficial stance, I guess, at geocaching.com has been just let it go. There's too many people who are using CGO that we can't kill it, because for a long time they had, when it first came out, long time, they had been actually locking the accounts of people who were using CGO because it was scraping so much data, it was actually impacting the performance of the servers.
Really?
Yeah. And they've gotten better with the later versions of CGO. And don't forget that the original developer completely walked away from the project. He open sourced it and walked away.
Really?
Yeah. So it's now a different, I think it's actually a team, but it is a different developer at the very least doing it now from the early days. And it has improved dramatically just in the responsiveness of the app. Between the two teams, you could definitely tell.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, hey, you got 4 heads working on it rather than just one guy, I guess.
Well, I'm not sure it's even originally it just sat for a couple of months, I think. And then someone decided they were going to pick up the gauntlet and then really started to work on the open source version of it. And it wasn't long before people were mentioning that it performed better. And I did do a couple of tests on I think it was a Samsung phone that I had at the time. And it was like, yeah, this definitely feels a little bit better. Still kind of meh. But at the time, it was still pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is, I want to say in the days of, what was the name of that one? Chris, help me out with the early geocaching app for iPhone. It was like
Geosphere?
no, pre-Geosphere.
Hold on, I got my phone right here. I got most of
You probably still have it on there, Scott?
No, probably not. It was like AYE caching or something like that.
it. Wasn't Gopher Light. Come on, Gopher.
No, Gopher Light was even earlier yet.
The best. I mean,
And Gopher never came out. They just always had the light version.
Gophers.
I don't remember the other one.
Gopher Light was actually scraping too, but
Oh,
the iPhone one, the one that I can't remember the name of, was just GPX files. At that point, they didn't have the API, and I don't think they even had the API for CGO to use. So at the time, when you started, and then the word is that they did reach out to the developer of CGO, when they were having all these problems, and said, hey, we want to give you API access so that you don't have to hurt our servers and get our users banned. And he just flat out declined. And that's one of the reasons why he actually dropped the project.
Really?
And it's probably because he didn't like the shackles of being under the API program.
And he would have to redesign his entire app.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But, that's speculation. We don't know for sure that that's what it was, but it certainly seems like a good reason if that happened to me.
GSM times 2 in the chat says the fact that it's a group of people working on CGO is one of the reasons they cannot have API access.
Oh, interesting.
Really?
That does make some sense because it's an open source group of people too.
Right.
If it was like a company,
exactly,
they probably would let they could probably sign up as the company, but because it's the group of people on an open source app, that makes licensing a little bit more difficult.
Interesting.
All right, Chris, you want to read the next question?
I would love to read it from Phrazy Days. Sent an email, said, if I solve a mystery cache, but not in the way the CO intended, not following his directions within the description of the cache, can I log the cache as found when I locate it?
This is how I do puzzle caches.
Scott, I was thinking of you on this one. It's probably not within the spirit of the game, he says, but I did work out where Ground Zero was. Yeah. So, Scott, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, I have found over 1,000 mystery caches. I think I have solved maybe 3 of them. So, maybe 3. So I have no problem with that. The best is when people, hey, here's the coordinates to that cache. Thank you. I have no. You put your name on the log. It's a valid find.
Right.
And I totally get where they're going with this. It's probably not within the spirit of the game thing because to me, geocaching is about the group thing. So as long as someone in your group has done the effort of solving the puzzle, you go out caching together and you all sign it. That I don't have a problem with at all. If you just happen to brute force it, then yeah, I can see the qualms with it. But as long as you find it, you've still found it, and that's what it comes down to.
I brute forced many a puzzle. What's wrong with that?
Well, I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying that's not in the spirit of what the cache owner intended.
No, but
but it's still a valid find.
Yeah, I mean,
and
everybody plays their own way.
Sure, and the brute forcing of the puzzles can be a lot of fun. Okay, I know there's a cache here. I know there's a cache here. I know there's a cache here. There's a little hole here that it probably could sit. Let's go and figure out where it might be. That can be a fun little scavenger hunt in itself.
Absolutely. Maybe I should do a puzzle just based on that. A mystery cache of you think where it should be and go out and find it.
I remember years ago, probably about 7 years ago, a multi came out, and it was like an 8-stage multi, just a nightmare. And I looked at where it was, and it was in the woods. So this guy had you walking all through the woods, and the hint was for the final. And the hint, as soon as I read the hint, I knew exactly where that cache was. And I got the FDF.
Well, and Phrazy Days is in the chat right now and said that they worked as a group and had a lot of fun, and it was obvious where it was. So it might have been something like that with the hint kind of giving it away.
I don't think he tried to. It's just because I grew up. Not I grew up because I lived in the area. I knew the hint. You know, like I understood what he was referring to,
Mm-hmm.
and boom, yeah, went and grabbed it. Took me 3 minutes to find it. It's one of those like
GSM times 2 says the two Scots are in total agreement, you and he, and also says that he's found them by accident. And is he not supposed to sign the log?
Exactly. No. It's
Well,
fine.
I do know.
I've stumbled across caches that were archived and thought to have been lost. I didn't realize what they were until I got back and did the math essentially to figure out where they were based on what was in the area.
Yeah.
And had I known they were archived, I probably would have grabbed the container and given it back to the CO. Yep. And at least two of them, when we talked with the CO, he's like, "Yeah, definitely log it. Where was it? I need to go pick it up because I couldn't find it."
Yeah, it's there are pure. I do know purists who play this game who will not log that puzzle until they solve that puzzle. They'll sign in, but they won't log it until they will go home and solve it, and then they'll log.
Mm-hmm.
I know people who do that.
Well,
that's
very similar to challenge caches that, I'm out with a group, I'll find it, but I haven't actually met the qualifications for the challenge. So as soon as I do that, then, I'll acknowledge that I already signed it.
Sure. Oh, and
that makes a lot of sense if you're visiting an area that's not near your home, and especially if you're not going to be getting back there.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. No, I found a cache in Wisconsin years ago. It was a 366 challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I had just cached up. I had to wait I think a year and a half, almost 2 years to log into it because I cleared out I didn't have February 29th. I cleared out the rest of the year. I had to wait until February 29th to log that cache. And so I think I sat on it for almost 2 years. I sat on that thing. So yeah, yeah.
But the end of February comes every year, Scott.
Not the 29th.
Oh, not the very end of February.
Not the tippy yet.
Or is that the bonus end?
The bonus.
Ooh.
Like, I don't know if a bell to ring or I'd ring it.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I did send a note off to RockChalk to get the official stance on it, and the geocaching.com official stance is if the name is on the log, then it's a valid fine. And he continued, we sometimes, not often, receive complaints from cache owners that a finder did not solve the puzzle as intended or piggybacked on someone else who did solve the puzzle. But it just wouldn't be possible for us to wade through those issues. So we have to say if the signature is there, then it's a find.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
I agree.
It makes perfect sense. And to me, that's what the spirit of the guidelines are.
Yeah.
So plain and simple, if you're a CO who doesn't like that people are finding your caches without solving the puzzle, it's just part of the game that you have to deal with, and try to hide the caches a little better next time so that people can't brute force it.
Stop creating a-hole puzzles. You can do that too.
Well, yeah.
Scott, tell me what you really think.
No one likes an a-hole puzzle, man. Nobody.
Nobody? Are you sure?
Nobody likes an a-hole puzzle.
Not even the cache owner?
Well, he likes to giggle and do it, yes.
So you're saying cache owners are nobodies?
Look at you turning me around like that. Everyone loves a good sea hide, and Adele, you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Everyone loves a good sea hide, you know.
Okay, let's move on to an article from. Oh, there you go.
Well, thank you.
Let's move on to an article that I grabbed out of Engadget that Quantum Compass provides navigation without using a GPS.
Isn't this what the guys on Big Bang were working on?
I was going to say this
Theory?
does sound familiar, so I think we actually have a scientific breakthrough from a TV show. Wouldn't be the first time. But the article says that scientists have demonstrated a commercially viable quantum accelerometer that could provide navigation without GPS or other satellite technology. The device uses lasers to cool atoms to extremely low temperatures and then measures the quantum wave properties of these atoms as they respond to acceleration.
Daryl, you have to go lasers if you're going to do it correct.
Lasers. So is everyone lost by what's happening here already?
Well, Okay, I've heard this a couple of times, using a laser cooling array. I'm like, wait a minute. Lasers, light stimulated by uh
Lasers, light
some
amplification by
light amplification by
stimulated emission of radiation.
yeah, there you go. Sorry,
That's
my
off the
brain's
top of
not-
my head, so I think that might be a little wrong.
But I thought lasers created heat from the intense light. I don't understand how a laser can cool.
Yeah, I really don't know enough about lasers, and the little bit that I worked with them was like in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
When they were
Light
cool.
amplification by
When it was the cool new technology, and everyone was getting into Scott's favorite technology, the laser disc.
Right. That was the 80s. Wasn't that the 80s laser disc?
Oh yeah, it was the
70s.
80s that laser. Well, it was actually the 70s, but it was the 80s when they came out with the consumer version. I actually had a laser disc player that I wish I still had, so I could give it to you, Scott.
You had a laser disc player?
Oh, I had several laser disc players.
You know, that doesn't shock me though. It's more I
Oh.
think.
Well, and I had to use them at work all the time. This isn't days of like
I look at all the crap behind you, and I'm like, shockingly, he had a laser disc player.
Well, in the days of like the 286 and the 386, that's how you got video on demand.
Okay, I know, yeah.
So you had RS-232 control, serial control of the Laserdisc player, and we're triggering it from Macromedia Director.
God bless Macromedia.
And playing it through a series of different video cards that you'd use a color. And remember, this is still only the 8-bit days, so you only had 256 colors anyway. But you used a color as the key value. And then you can control where the video played through off the Laserdisc player. That was what we were doing at like conventions and stuff. Kiosks and even shows, getting custom-made laser discs.
Yeah, see, me and my friends and me and Chris, we were going to bars and picking up girls. Daryl was going to cons and stuff and playing with lasers.
And working like 60, 70-hour days doing multimedia and video editing. Yes, I am a geek.
Oh, I love you, Daryl. You know that.
Daryl, while you were talking, I went ahead and looked up laser cooling techniques.
Oh, excellent.
They rely on the fact that when an object, usually an atom, absorbs and re-emits a photon, a particle of light, its momentum changes. And the lasers can cool things to near absolute zero. So there you go.
Interesting.
Still not sure how that works, but sounds cool.
Well, obviously, when it absorbs and re-emits a proton, its momentum would change.
Yes.
Well, we all know that.
Well, I don't have enough physics backgrounds. This is one of those times where I really kind of wish I had paid more attention in physics class. And I probably still wouldn't understand it anyway, especially because I got more confused than like zoning out. I just anyway, I really wish I had a better grasp to understand how some of this really cool, wacky stuff works.
Oh, the lasers apparently really cool things down.
Huh? Really?
Really cool.
Really cool.
Oh, he just punned. Oh, really, dude? Seriously, just pun, Chris. Oh, Lord.
Have you not listened to Chris of the Northwest?
So, Daryl, I got a question for you.
I'm puntastic.
I'm sure you do. Go ahead.
No, are we done with the laser? Sorry.
Well, I think we're done with the lasers for now. We'll come back to them later.
So this over the last weekend, Jesse and I did a reverse Where I Go.
Okay.
Have you ever done one before?
I have.
Yeah, it was interesting. It's like a game of hot and cold.
Yes. Yeah, and some of them actually have limits as to how many times you can do it.
Oh, really?
Which makes it really, really tough. Now, the question is, did you do it with the Where I Go app on the iPhone?
I did, yes.
Did you actually get clues from the map mode on the iPhone app?
No, we just walked and then clicked.
Okay. Because we had one of those where I was starting to get close to the number of tries, and it's a Where I Go cartridge, so you can just reset and start over again.
Right, yeah.
But we were getting close to the number of tries, so I went to the map. It's like, oh, there it is. It's right there.
Well, I know if you get a certain, I think with ours, if you got within within 20 yards, they give you the final chords. So you only need to get within, was it like 9 feet? I don't know. How far is 20 yards? I don't even know.
20 yards would be
About 20 meters.
Yeah. 20 yards would be 60 feet or
then maybe it was 20 feet. Maybe it was, maybe it was
or about 18 meters.
Something.
Or am I going the wrong way?
It was done in yards, I think. It was.
Yeah.
Maybe 3.
Yeah, so it's easy enough to find something like that if it's just those few.
But we gotta. I guess you can't put one out unless you do one. Is that the story with it? Is it still that way now? Did you hear about that? Like, because
I wouldn't be surprised.
We got a code. So
yeah,
you put one out now. Like, but I supposedly you can't put one out until you actually do one.
Oh,
well, you get the code to be able to use that particular Where I Go cartridge on your own.
Yes. So I can actually now create a Where I Go. I can now create a reverse Where I Go.
Exactly.
Yes.
Pretty cool, right? You
Jessie
gonna do it?
Jesse's totally gonna do it. She's already planning it out. She's a big nerd. She's Oh yeah. She's looking forward to it. Me, I'm like, meh. Yeah, I did it so she can have 2 codes. There you go. Now you get another code.
Same code, I believe.
No, they're different codes.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, the code is based on your username.
Yeah.
Oh.
So part of the problem is you can't actually share the code if you do them together.
Right, which is why I also did it as well, just in case we wanted.
Right. Well, and just as a Where I Go tip, I always tell people run it on as many devices as you can. And each person does have to download their own Where I Go cartridge because that's where the name seems to be embedded.
Right. Well, when you're doing Anywhere I Go or just
when you're doing Anywhere I Go, we'll give you a completion code, or you can upload the cartridge to indicate that it's been done. But you have to have your own file because it seems like the what's it called? The usernames are actually built into that file when it's sent to you.
No, we just do it because like we play Where I Go Survivor. Like, because by you
start yeah.
people having it open, and then by the end, whoever's got the last one making it to the final gets you're the winner of the.
Oh, absolutely, and that's why you really need to do the multiple devices.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because Where I Go, it honestly it hasn't been so bad even with the GPSRs these days, but it used to be that you were guaranteed within 3 stops. So one of them was going to be dead.
Oh, we once went through 6. Oh yeah, 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, the joy of the Where I Go. Yes. So yeah, I thought you'd find that interesting, Daryl, that we actually did a reverse Where I Go.
Oh yeah, they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It took us about 15 minutes. It was fun.
I would be much more impressed if you actually did one of the physical reverse geocaches. Have you seen any of those?
I have not seen any of those.
I have not done one, but I have seen them.
It's an icon, isn't it? Wasn't that its own? Was that
No, they're just a puzzle cache. They don't have their own icon.
No,
but
one of them did. What had their own icon? The reverse what?
Oh, locationless.
Locationless, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's different. That's more like waymarking than it is geocaching. But the one that I saw, I didn't actually do it because it was in, I think, Germany. But it was this cool reverse geocache where the theme was that you were trying to escape from zombies, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to go to these various stops. So it really wasn't a reverse geocache, except that you're carrying around the actual geocache container.
Really?
So you had to go to the first location, grab the geocache, and walk around with this thing.
Huh.
And it's giving you prompts on screen and doing the, it's all text-based too. But it's giving you the prompts on screen. It's telling you, you have to find this. And when you get to that area, okay, now you have to go here. Okay, now go back. And when you get back, it unlocks. I really, really want to do one of those. not necessarily build one, but do one. Actually find it.
Are there any in the States at all?
I would not be surprised if there are. I would doubt because it's the electronics that we're going to find one in the northern part of America.
I vaguely remember seeing maybe it was a video or something about one where I think it was in the States where it was a timed one. Is that when it was kind of like a briefcase?
There are some of those, and there's a lot of those reverse geocaches that were done just as like gifts. They're not like public geocaches. It's like
that could totally be it.
Yeah, and that's the one that really got a lot of press. Was someone had made a really nice, they were a carpenter as well, and did this really nice handcrafted box, and inside was a gift like a bottle of wine or something like that, like a nice bottle of wine. And the whole point was they only hit this button, and this was the very first one, I think Arduino based. They only hit this button every 2 or 3 hours at most.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, you got it. Yes.
And then they had to find it within like 10 button presses.
Yes.
And as long as they got within, I think he had said it really broad is like within 100 feet, which still isn't that broad if you think about it from like a where I go perspective.
Right.
But as long as he got within 100 feet, it would open. And this was for like an anniversary gift. So it was at the spot that they proposed to each other, or well, he proposed to her, she proposed to him, whatever, where the proposal took place. Mm-hmm. And my thought was, if you got a present from someone like that, isn't that kind of obvious that that's where it would be?
You would think, yes.
And I think they said they got within like 1 or 2 button presses.
Like, oh, it's probably here.
Before figuring that out.
I bet it's here.
Yeah, so it just was such a cool idea. And then, he posted all of the source code for it. He posted the schematics for what he did. And then there were a bunch of them. And you started seeing the suitcase, briefcase type things. The trouble with like the first of the briefcase ones that I saw that was actually successful was the guy who built it was saying it's just too big. He was having problems with the mechanics of locking and unlocking that off of a battery.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff might be a lot easier now that we have the small portable lithium ion batteries. But at that point, they were still running them off AA's.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think, I don't think that that's a possibility for regular cache. I think it would get, unless you've got it at your house or something along those lines, I think it's going to get muggled. That thing is going to be, the elements of
the thing that I keep wondering if you could do would be something where you run around with your phone. Not necessarily where I go, but where I go could work, where you have the cache maybe at a given location.
Well, can't you AR that?
You could AR it as well, but AR caches are going away fairly soon. We don't know that they're going away, but the trial period, the experiment,
right? Yeah, sure,
is going to be wrapping up in 3 months, I think.
Is it?
I'd have to go.
When does it wrap up? I don't even know.
Yeah, I have to look again at what it was. I just looked at this a little while ago because I contacted Nicole to see about if it looked like it was going to be extended and when we might be able to get her back on the show to talk about what happened with the experiment.
Right.
So at this point, they don't know. And we have to check back closer to the time it extends, or it was extended to. And I want to say it was like early in the new year. So like January, February, I think.
Have you done one?
I've done 2.
What'd you think?
Both of them were the early incarnations, and Metaverse, is that the one? And Metaverse was giving us problems. So not that it was necessarily problems with the way that they were built, but the app was giving us problems. This was in the summertime as well. Mm-hmm. So we were having thermal issues with the phones. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we did it quickly, it was fine, and it didn't give us a problem. After about 2-3 minutes of going through and working on it, we started having the screen dim.
Really?
Yeah, because it was getting too hot.
Too hot, yeah. No, we did one in West Bend, and it was really nice. It was the only problem was it was like 10 questions, 10 questions about old cartoon shows, and I think that was it. And if you got one wrong, it started over again. And that was because what you had to do was, like, for example, there was like somebody would be flying around, so you had to find the guy flying around. After
Mm-hmm.
you got him, then the question came. So you first of all you had to find the guy flying around, and then the question. If you got the question wrong, it completely started over, and it was just time consuming. It was just tedious. So, but I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. For what it was. I thought it was.
Oh yeah, no, I like the AR caches.
Yeah.
I think the apps still have a little way to go, and I still want to try the HP app. I haven't tried any of those caches yet.
I neither. No.
Yeah.
There's
I
no
think-
way. There's no ARs here where I live.
Really?
No.
Wow. I figured you guys would have quite a few of them.
Not that I know of. Anyway, no.
But Keepers of the Cash Flow actually sent by Twitter the AR cache that they created, which is GC7T19N. I think that's the right one. I'm having a little bit of trouble because I've got the stupid dialogue that popped up when I tried reading it. So we'll have to check that one out later, but theirs is in Metaverse as well. Yeah, and they were saying in the chat that the HP app is less user-friendly.
Really?
And they believe that March 12th is the new date, which sounds vaguely correct.
March.
I can't confirm that right this second, but that sounds, now that they said March.
Confirm nor deny.
Yeah. But yeah, now that they mentioned March, that sounds more like it.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, if it goes away, it stinks, but it is what it is. I mean, you can't,
Well, if it goes away, I totally get it. There's been a lot of issues with it, with the apps. I would like to see them stay, but it might just be too early. And the impression I got during the show when we talked with Nicole about the AR caches was they were very happy with the response and the way people received them, but that they were getting a lot of complaints about the apps themselves.
Really?
Well, it would shock me for geocaching.com to leave them or to allow more, I'll put it this way, using apps they don't control.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely. Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
I look at them and say, I think they'll grandfather them and let them stay until, the apps start failing.
Right. Yeah.
Or, update to a point that, this, whatever you built them with doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of my guess is at the very least, we're going to see the ones that we have grandfathered. They're not going to archive them.
Right. I mean,
and that's at least my hope.
They've been known to not play well with others, so it actually shocked me that they let others come in, like a third-party app being used to find
exactly.
Well, and this has been one of those weird situations with geocaching.com over the years is for a while they allowed some of that stuff and then they stopped allowing it because of some of the embedded viruses. Mm-hmm. And since then, it's been really, really tough to get it through. But you have been able to get some of that stuff through, especially for like the cryptography. What's the steganography? There's been some of those steganography apps that you can use. Roger in the chat says the apps are a bit clunky. Some of the caches are great. Some are pretty lame, but they have a number of them in Ontario.
Really?
And I assume that's Ontario, Canada. Maybe they can confirm rather than like California. So I would say that there's probably a lot in
both.
Yeah, both. Yeah. But there's I haven't been over there as much. I think the last time I was in Canada, Scott, is when we went.
That's the last time I was in Canada.
Yeah. I thought you went one more time.
Did I go one more time? No.
I don't know, but I thought you did.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe I did go one more time.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, not without. No, I wouldn't have gone because I would have gone in Michigan. I would have gone.
Okay. So that was the last time. And that was, 3 years ago?
I only see you in Michigan. I don't know anybody else in Michigan. So that's the only time
Well, that's not true. You do know Scrap Cat.
I do know Scrap Cat. Yes.
And she will be offended now.
But I don't, sorry. But I don't go visit. She's a patron of the show. I got to be nice. So, but I do not go to visit Scrap Cat. I go to Michigan to visit you.
Well, and if you had come to visit her recently, she actually has a cache on her front porch, but she's going to archive it soon.
Oh, no, I was gonna say next time, but why is she gonna archive?
It's okay. Total tangent here, and it's worth talking about. She has a giant chest on her front porch.
You know,
That's all of the things that they cleaned out of the house. So it's like
for crap.
crafting supplies. It's gifts. It's like the little gift sets. She had some little tool sets and stuff. It's all this stuff that she has multiples of and just wants gone. So it's called whatever recycles. So the whole point is she's trying to get rid of this stuff, and she says right on the cache page, please take only, do not trade. And she's still getting people dropping stuff into it.
I don't want your crap. I'm trying to get rid of my crap. That's awesome.
Roger does confirm that it is Canadian. So that's Ontario. Or Windsor. Not Windsor, but Ontario, the province.
We go to Windsor.
Yeah, we went to Windsor. And we stayed mostly along the riverfront so that we actually could get signal from the Detroit side of the river.
It was a beautiful day.
It was. And it was loud.
That was 3 years ago?
I think it was 3 years ago. It was like one of the music festivals was happening right across the river.
I have not been to Michigan in 3 years. It's been 3 years since I've been down there.
No, you were to Michigan last year. You came after the wedding for our geocaching reception party thing.
Yeah, okay. So I'm like, I can't imagine it's been 3 years since I've been there.
And it was such nasty weather that day.
I'm trying to remember. I don't even remember.
We did one of the Puzzler 26 hides back in the woods.
Yes.
We went for another one of the caches where we're like wading through a swamp almost that was grass with ice crusted on the top.
Because then we did that long walk through remember we were in the woods and we took that long walk through like the tall grass and all that. Took a really good picture. That's how I remember.
I don't know that was that trip, but it might have been. Trip? Because that trip, the only thing I remember is how nasty it turned out that day. And we only got like 3 or 4 caches, I think, in the entire day.
They all blend together then. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I've been there in a while. I know that.
No, it's been a year because we just had the first anniversary of that event.
Oh, really? Oh, was it the bubble tea event?
It was the bubble tea event, yeah. That we made our party with the little funny espresso shot glass things. Those were good.
God, that bubble tea was so gross. Oh. Chris, you ever had bubble tea, man?
I've had it once.
Crap is gross, man.
It was different.
I can't get past it, man. That stuff goes in my mouth, and I'm just like, bleh. That's my initial. My initial is to spit it out.
Is it the bubbles you don't like, or the consistency of the? It's like a shake, or
no, it's the consistency of the bubble. The bubble, pops in your mouth, and you're like, bleh. You're like.
Well, the traditional bubble tea is more like just an iced tea or milk iced tea with those tapioca pearls, and a lot of people really hate those tapioca pearls.
Yeah, I had taro is my first one. Taro.
That's that you had the taro tea.
Yeah,
right. Probably with the tapioca pearls, those little black pearls. Yeah.
Yep. I remember trying to like not get the pearls in my drink. I like the drink was good. I should have got the drink no pearls.
Oh yeah, you can certainly do that. Let's see what I was thinking I should have done to you is forced you to get the popping pearls. Then you would have been really grossed out.
I know.
They like squirt in your mouth when you bite them.
Chris, if you will, please. Chris.
Yeah.
Could you ring a bell for me?
Oh, sorry. I lost it there. Yes.
Yes, that's gross, Daryl. That's really extremely gross.
It's like
it makes rocks, awesome. Right? They don't think they have anything quite like Pop Rocks. So they do have hot chili pearls.
Something like this pearl drink that you're speaking of.
No. But the Halloween drinks with those popping pearls are kind of cool because it's like the popping eyeballs.
No, it's not cool.
Oh, yeah. Now I want one.
It's gross. That's what it is.
Daryl,
It's always a good
Dar-
show when
you-
we can get
you're
Scott
not selling
grossed
it,
out.
Daryl.
I'm not trying to sell it. I'm trying to gross Scott out.
It's oh man, those things were
Where's the fun in selling it? It's more fun to get Scott all queasy
yeah, those were not good.
as he thinks about the little bubbles rolling around in his mouth and squirting.
Fish eggs, right?
Does it taste anything like caviar though?
But yeah, I'll talk to Jesse. We got to get back up there. We haven't been up there.
For the bubble
sounds
tea.
good.
Come visit.
Oh, absolutely. You got to come for the next bubble tea event.
Go back to Canada. Get back up to Canada, eh?
Oh,
some
yeah.
tidbits.
Yeah, if we're doing that,
They're
though,
like
we probably
bubble
want to
tea.
wait until probably at least April
That's
when
fine.
it's a little bit warmer, and we'll probably still freeze our butts off if we're anywhere near the river.
But you figure if it's been 3 years, maybe it's like a repopulated again. Hopefully.
Oh, I'm sure it has been, because they've done some work on the riverfront there, and it's a nice park. They had a lot of that stuff done when we were there.
Yeah.
But they've cleaned it up and extended it, from what I understand.
And maybe get
So,
Renee to
even
go.
more.
Renee couldn't go. Isn't she working or something?
Renee could not go at the time.
We should get her to go.
And she's texting me that our conversation is making her rethink bubbles.
Right. It's squirting in her mouth like that. No one likes that.
She loves bubble tea, and if we're able to gross her out with that, I've done my job well. All right, well, we'll
Enjoy
wrap
the
up this
couch
one.
tonight, Daryl.
Yeah, I got a futon.
Right?
Oh, so you're prepared.
Like
I
all
am
I've done this before.
like all good single men, he's got the futon.
All right, well, we wrap this one up because we're over an hour now, and we still have another show to do, Chris.
Well, you guys may have another show. I'm not feeling well, so I'm gonna bag out. But I'm gonna have to listen to that.
All
And
right.
you two just keep talking about bubble tea.
I got locked into a patron show here. This was not.
Oh, Scott, can you hang out for a while, or you want to take off? And
Come on, you know I could hang out for.
okay, I just want to make sure.
Oh, Jesse,
I know you're busy on working on a prep for another show, so I don't want to interrupt that.
oh, it's okay.
All right, so we'll get another show going here in a little bit.
Said no to Daryl. Come on, man. You say
Many times,
I say
many
no,
times, but it's not stuff we can talk about on there.
right? That's for the Patreon show.
Sorry, it was just sitting there. I had to pick it.
Daryl grabs it when it's there.
Oh, awesome. All right. So patrons, hang on, and we'll have another show coming up for you in a little bit. We're just going to have to do a reset. And of course, if you're listening to this from the feed, then you'll already have that show on the patron feed. But we've got a good show next week, but we're going to be 2 hours early. And that's going to be with Love from Geocaching HQ talking about trackables. What timing? Didn't we do such a good job booking that one with the new souvenir?
Such a coincidence, Daryl.
Yeah.
Such a coincidence.
It's like someone had some insight into what was happening when she did the booking. And then on the 13th, we're going to be talking about 3D printing again. That's going to be with Antaeus and C. Nelson. You might remember them from many of our other 3D printing shows, but it's been way too long.
Hasn't Antaeus been on every 3D printing show you've been?
I don't think so. I think he had...
I think he might have missed one.
Yeah, I think he missed one. And and then the very first 3D printing show we did, neither one of them was on.
Ooh, really?
Yeah. So it has changed a little bit. And then on the 20th, we're going to be talking about benchmarking again with MD Surveyor. I'm looking forward to that because, again, we haven't talked about that in, I think it's 3 years now. Yeah.
Everyone loves a good benchmark.
Yeah, well, and there's not so much anymore, but there were a bunch of those challenges that required you to find benchmarks.
There's one out here. I just
Yeah.
I just found one the other day. I found a benchmark. Just was like benchmark. I'm like, I need one because we have a
Sweet.
7. You have to find 7, and I only have 6. Now I have 7. So,
And how many people do you know who can actually, geocachers who can actually find benchmarks these days? Because it's so buried on the website.
Jesse finds all of them. In fact, she was just on the website the other day. We could talk about this. And what's called? She was trying to find the benchmark we were looking for. She was in the benchmark section of the website, looking for the benchmark.
Okay, GSM times 2 just made me laugh in the chat room. He says, if you like the show, give it a thumbs up. If bubble tea is gross, give it a thumbs down. Oh, that's funny. Okay. Sorry.
No, don't get me wrong. I urge everybody to try it because you've got to try it because you may love it. But if
benchmarking or bubble tea?
Both.
Okay.
I like benchmarking. I just don't find them. But bubble tea is just
And Renee just texted me that now all this talk about bubble tea makes her want bubble tea.
It's bubble tea. She's like, I'm going. What do you want?
Well, at this point, no one's open, so she's going to have to make it herself if she wants it.
An hour later, I forgot. You can't make your own bubble tea?
Absolutely, you can.
My God, this is such a patron show. We got to go to the patron show and making bubble tea.
Start Googling bubble tea recipes.
Oh, that's so gross. Daryl's bubble tea. What's your tapioca, Daryl? Thank you.
All right. So the 27th, we're going to be talking about preserving heritage caches with R. Reagan. So he's going to come back. He actually wrote up a little paper about how we might save some of those older caches. So we're going to be talking about that on the show.
Yeah, that was really done well. Hey, even if you don't like bubble tea, go check out the Cacheamaniacs website at cacheamaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing GeoGearHeads at cacheamaniacs.com or through the many channels of social media. Your support helps keep the Cacheamaniac shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cacheamaniac shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. The show's copyright 2018 by Daryl Wattenberg. All rights reserved.
Cache with the Cacheamaniacs.